Get him out before the Russo party arrives. Ben Carter said it without lowering his voice, as though the old man at table 12 had stopped being human the moment his coat became too worn for Harrington's dining room. I was carrying a tray of champagne past the marble host's stand when I saw him. He sat alone beneath the gold wall lights, shoulders bent beneath a brown coat darkened by rain, counting quarters and folded dollar bills beside an untouched menu. Around him, Chicago's wealthiest diners pretended not to stare while making certain everyone noticed them staring. One woman lifted her phone and angled it toward him. Another complained that the restaurant charged too much to let people like that sit near paying customers. The old man heard every word. He did not argue. He simply finished counting his money and folded his hands over it. "Grace," Ben snapped, "handle it." I set down my tray and approached the table. Up close, I noticed details the room had ignored. His white hair had been carefully combed. His hands were weathered but clean. A faded scar crossed one knuckle, and an old silver ring rested on his right hand. "Good evening, sir," I said. "Have you decided what you would like?" Surprise moved across his face before gratitude replaced it. "What is the least expensive thing on the menu?" "The tomato soup is $12. He looked down at his money. $11.68. I knew because he had arranged every coin in neat rows. "Coffee?" he asked. $6. He gave a small nod. "Then coffee will be enough." Behind me, Ben cleared his throat. I could feel him watching. I opened my order pad. "The soup is included with the evening bread service tonight." It was not. The old man studied me long enough to understand the lie, but kind enough not to expose it. Then I would be grateful for the soup. When I entered the order, Ben followed me into the service station. "You are paying for that." "Fine. That is not the point." "Then what is?" His face tightened. "The Russo reservation is in 20 minutes. We cannot have him sitting there when Dominic Russo walks in." I looked toward table 12. The old man had removed a folded handkerchief and was drying rain from his sleeves. He paid for a seat. He paid in coins. They still spend. Ben warned me that Charles Harrington would hear about this. I told him to make sure he spelled my name correctly. When I returned with the soup, the woman filming laughed and asked whether we had started running a shelter. The old man lowered his eyes, but I placed the bowl before him as carefully as I would have served the mayor. "Enjoy your dinner, sir." "Thank you, Miss Miller." I had never given him my name. He saw the question on my face and nodded toward the small badge pinned to my vest. "I still notice things," he said. "People assume age takes that first." I smiled despite myself. "Do you come here often?" His gaze shifted toward the empty private table near the windows, the one prepared for Dominic Russo and his guests. 6 chairs, black napkins, one seat positioned with a clear view of both entrances. The old man turned the silver ring slowly around his finger. "My son always sat facing the door," he said. My breath caught at the sadness beneath his voice. "Your son comes here?" He looked at the empty chair as though 20 years were sitting in it. "Sometimes." "What is his name?" The old man lifted his eyes to mine. Before he answered, 3 black vehicles stopped beneath the restaurant awning, and every manager in the room suddenly stood straighter. "Dominic Russo," he said. The old man's answer reached me just as the restaurant doors opened. Conversations softened before anyone announced who had arrived. Ben straightened his jacket. Charles Harrington appeared from nowhere, smiling with the nervous precision he reserved for powerful guests. The woman who had been filming lowered her phone, but only long enough to turn the camera toward the entrance. Dominic Russo stepped inside beneath the glow of the chandeliers, followed by 3 men in dark suits. He was taller than I expected, broad-shouldered, composed, and so still that the entire room seemed restless around him. His black coat carried a trace of rain. His gaze moved once across the dining room, cataloging exits, faces, and movement. Then it stopped at table 12. The old man did not turn. He lifted one spoonful of soup and tasted it slowly, as though he had waited 20 years for that exact moment and refused to rush it now. Dominic's expression did not change, but one of the men behind him did. A silver-haired man near his right shoulder went pale. He reached for his phone, missed it, and let it strike the marble floor. The sound was small, but the old man heard it. "Victor Hale," he said quietly. I followed his gaze. Victor bent to retrieve the phone, but his eyes never left table 12. Fear looked strange on a man dressed that well. Ben moved toward the old man with forced confidence. "Sir, your meal is finished." We need the table. He has barely started, I said. Grace, step away. Madeline Cross, the woman with the camera, laughed from the next table. Honestly, this has gone far enough. Some people do not belong in places like this. The old man folded his napkin beside the bowl. His hands remained steady. Places change, he said. People rarely do. Madeline smiled at her phone. Did everyone hear that? He thinks he is a philosopher. A few guests laughed because wealth often mistakes agreement for good manners. My face burned. Turn off the camera, I said. You work here, Madeline replied. You do not give me orders. No, I am asking you to show basic decency. Ben caught my arm lightly and lowered his voice. Do you want to lose your job? Before I could answer, Dominic began walking toward us. No one stopped him. No one spoke. Even Charles Harrington stepped aside. Dominic passed the prepared private table without looking at it. His attention remained fixed on the old man's right hand, where the silver ring caught the chandelier light. The symbol was small, a crowned wolf beneath 3 stars. Dominic stopped 6 feet from table 12. The color had drained from his face, but his voice stayed controlled. Where did you get that ring? The old man looked up at last. His eyes were gray, tired, and suddenly nothing about him seemed weak. Your mother gave it to me on our wedding day. The room disappeared beneath the silence. Dominic took 1 step closer. Victor moved behind him. Dominic, he said quickly. This man is confused. Let security handle it. The old man looked past Dominic toward Victor. Still speaking before the truth can catch up to you. Victor's jaw tightened. Dominic did not turn around. He stared at the old man's face as if searching through 20 years of memory for something he had been told was gone. That is impossible, he said. You died. The old man's expression softened, but only for a moment. That is what he needed you to believe. Dominic followed his gaze toward Victor. The entire restaurant seemed to hold its breath. Then Dominic looked back at the man everyone had mocked, and the word left him almost like a prayer. Father. The word changed the room more completely than any command could have. Madeline lowered her phone. Ben released my arm. Charles Harrington stared at the old man as though dignity had become visible only after Dominic named it. Samuel Russo did not stand. He remained at table 12 with the bowl of soup cooling before him, looking at his son with an expression too tired for triumph. Dominic moved closer until only the table separated them. You let me believe you were dead, he said. His voice stayed low, but every guest heard it. Samuel turned the ring once around his finger. I let you believe what kept you alive. For 20 years? For as long as the lie remained useful to the man behind you. Dominic looked toward Victor. The silver-haired advisor had recovered his phone, but not his composure. This is absurd, Victor said. Anyone can wear an old ring and memorize family stories. Samuel reached inside his coat slowly. 2 of Dominic's men shifted, but Dominic raised 1 hand, and they stopped. Samuel placed a faded photograph beside the soup bowl. A younger Dominic stood between 2 boys beneath a summer tree. Samuel was behind them, 1 hand on Dominic's shoulder. On the back, someone had written, "My sons, before the world teaches them fear." Dominic picked it up. His thumb paused over the handwriting. Mother wrote this. The morning Ethan turned 9, Samuel said. Dominic's expression tightened at the name. Victor stepped forward. Dominic, this man is manipulating you. We should move this conversation somewhere secure. Samuel looked at me instead. Miss Miller, would you tell him what you saw when he entered? I glanced at Victor. He dropped his phone when he noticed you. Dominic's gaze sharpened. Victor forced a laugh. Surprise is not guilt. No, Samuel said. But fear usually recognizes what memory tries to bury. Charles hurried toward us, his smile strained. Mr. Russo, the private room is ready. We can clear the restaurant. Dominic looked around at the guests who had mocked Samuel minutes earlier. Some stared at their plates. Others pretended they had never raised their phones. No, he said. Let them remember what they found entertaining. Madeline's face reddened. Samuel finally rose, moving carefully but without asking for help. Up close, the resemblance became impossible to ignore. The same gray eyes. The same straight nose. The same habit of holding silence until other people filled it with mistakes. Dominic saw it too. Pain crossed his face before control covered it. Why now, he asked. Samuel looked toward Victor. Because tonight he plans to sign away everything your family built and leave your name attached to what follows. Victor's calm vanished. You have no proof. Samuel opened his right hand. The ring rested in his palm. Your brother died protecting what is hidden inside this. Dominic stared at the silver band. Ethan knew. He knew enough to understand that you were being raised by the man who destroyed us. Victor stepped back. One of Dominic's men quietly blocked the aisle. No one touched him. No one needed to. Dominic looked from the ring to his father, then to me. Why did you trust her? He asked. Samuel's eyes softened. Because she served me before my name, made kindness profitable. The words struck the room harder than accusation. I felt every person who had laughed look away. Samuel pushed the ring across the table toward Dominic, but Dominic did not take it. Open it, Samuel said. Then decide which father taught you the truth. Victor turned toward the exit. Dominic finally reached for the ring. Nobody leaves, he said. The calm in his voice returned, but this time it carried something different. Not control. Reckoning. Dominic carried the ring into Harrington's private dining room, as though it weighed more than silver ever should. Samuel followed without asking for help. I came because he asked me to, although I still wore my server apron and had no place inside a family secret that had survived longer than I had been alive. Victor entered last, escorted by two of Dominic's men who remained near the door. No one touched him. Their silence was enough. The private room overlooked the Chicago River, where rain softened the city lights into broken gold. Dominic placed the ring on the table. Open it, he said. Samuel sat across from him. Your brother designed the compartment. Press the third star. Dominic studied the crowned wolf engraved into the silver. His thumb found the smallest star. A faint click answered. The face of the ring lifted, revealing a memory card no larger than my fingernail. Victor released a breath that sounded almost like relief. That proves nothing, he said. It could contain anything. Samuel looked at him. Then you should have no reason to fear it. Dominic handed the card to one of his men, who inserted it into a secure tablet. A single audio file appeared. The date was 20 years old. Before Dominic could press play, Victor stepped forward. You are trusting a man who abandoned you over the person who raised you. Dominic did not look up. You raised me to question everyone except you. The file began with static. Then a young man's voice filled the room. Ethan. I knew from the way Dominic stopped breathing. If you are hearing this, Dom, then father was right about Victor. The recording shook slightly, as if Ethan had made it in a hurry. He said Victor had created false accounts through Russo businesses and arranged evidence that made Samuel appear responsible. Samuel had discovered the plan and tried to remove Victor quietly. Before he could, Victor threatened both sons and forced Samuel to disappear. Ethan had found the original records, but the recording ended before he revealed where they were hidden. Dominic replayed the last 10 seconds. A church bell sounded faintly in the background. For notes. A pause. Then two. More. I had heard that pattern before. Every Sunday morning, while opening Harrington's patio, the bells from St. Gabriel's Church carried across the river in exactly that sequence. The recording was made near St. Gabriel's, I said. 3 men turned toward me. Victor's face gave away the answer before his mouth could hide it. Dominic noticed. There is an old Russo family chapel beneath the church, Samuel said. Ethan knew about it. Dominic closed the tablet. Then we go now. Victor laughed once, but there was no confidence in it. You are following guesses from a waitress and stories from a homeless man. Dominic rose slowly. The waitress saw what everyone else chose to ignore. The homeless man is my father. And you have spent 20 years making sure I confused your confidence with loyalty. Victor looked toward the door, calculating. Dominic's men remained still. Samuel stood, and the movement cost him more than he wanted anyone to see. Dominic noticed, but did not offer assistance. Pride recognized pride. You could have come back, Dominic said. The anger in his voice had returned, but now it was aimed in 2 directions. You could have told me. Samuel met his son's eyes. I believe distance would keep you safe. You let me mourn you. I know. You let Victor become the man I trusted. Samuel lowered his gaze. I know that too. The room held the weight of everything neither man could repair in one night. I looked from father to son and understood that Victor's greatest weapon had never been money. It had been silence. You both decided what truth Dominic could survive, I said. Samuel looked at me. Dominic did too. One of you did it to control him. One of you did it to protect him. But he still lost 20 years either way. Samuel closed his eyes briefly. Dominic turned toward the windows, his reflection dark against the rain. Then Victor's phone vibrated on the table. A message flashed across the lock screen. The transfer begins at midnight. Confirm, Dominic signs. Samuel read it first. That is why I came tonight, he said. Victor does not need your empire tomorrow. He needs your signature before midnight. The message on Victor's phone changed the shape of the night. Midnight was less than 2 hours away, and St. Gabriel's Church stood 6 blocks from Harrington's, its bell tower rising above the river like a dark memory. Dominic ordered one of his men to secure the transfer documents while another contacted his attorney. Victor watched them move and finally lost the calm he had worn like armor. You cannot stop what is already in motion, he said. Dominic slipped the ring into his coat pocket. Then you should have planned for me to learn the truth sooner. Samuel moved toward the door, but his hand tightened around the back of a chair. I stepped beside him before he could pretend he did not need support. I can walk, he said quietly. I know, I answered. You can also accept help. For a moment, pride resisted. Then he nodded. Dominic noticed, and something softened in his face before he turned away. We left Victor under guard in the private room and crossed the rain-darkened street towards St. Gabriel's. The church was closed, but Dominic had a key from the Russo family trust. Inside, the air smelled like old wood, candle wax, and stone cooled by decades of winter. Our footsteps echoed beneath the high ceiling. Samuel led us past the altar to a narrow side chapel where brass plaques carried the names of Russo family members who had died. One plaque bore Samuel's name. Dominic stopped in front of it. Samuel did too. Neither man spoke. They held your funeral here, Dominic said at last. I watched from across the street, Samuel replied. The words seemed to take the warmth from the room. Dominic looked at him. You watched me bury you. I had to know you were alive. You could have crossed the street. Victor had men inside. Dominic's jaw tightened. There was always another reason. Samuel lowered his eyes. There was always fear. I moved toward the old prayer benches while they stood before the false memorial. The bell from the recording had sounded clearer on Ethan's file than it did from the main sanctuary. I listened. Wind moved through the tower. Pipes clicked inside the walls. Then I noticed scratches along the floor beneath the third bench, as if it had been moved. Many times before. This one, I said. Dominic and Samuel came over. The bench was heavier than it looked, but Dominic lifted one side while I pulled. Beneath it was a narrow brass plate engraved with the same crowned wolf and 3 stars. The ring fit into a circular slot. Samuel turned it once, and a compartment opened beneath the floor. Inside were financial ledgers, old photographs, and a second recording device wrapped in cloth. Dominic pressed play. Ethan's voice returned, steadier this time. He explained that Victor had prepared a transfer agreement that would move every legitimate Russo company into offshore holdings controlled by him. Dominic's signature was the final requirement. After the transfer, Victor planned to reveal the false accounts and leave Dominic responsible for crimes he had never approved. Ethan had hidden the original records beneath the chapel because it was the one place Victor believed grief would keep Dominic away from. Then Ethan said something that made Samuel close his eyes. Father, if you hear this, do not disappear forever. Dominic will need the truth more than he needs protection. The recording ended. Dominic stared at the device in his hand. He told you to come back. Samuel's voice broke slightly. I found this too late. How late? 3 years after he died. Dominic turned away. The silence between them was no longer empty. It was crowded with every birthday, every funeral, every year that could not be returned. I looked at both men. Victor built his power from what neither of you said. I told them. Do not give him another hour. Dominic opened the top ledger. A signature page was clipped inside, dated for that night. At the bottom, beneath the transfer terms, was a line reserved for Dominic Russo. The space was blank. Samuel exhaled. Then Victor still needs you. Dominic looked toward the church doors. No. He needs the man he believes I became. His phone rang. Victor's name appeared on the screen, even though Victor was still inside Harrington's under guard. Dominic answered on speaker. Victor's voice came through calm and familiar. Bring the documents back to the restaurant. Sign them before midnight. And your father walks away. I looked at Samuel. He was standing beside me. Dominic's expression changed. Where is Grace? Victor asked. A second voice answered from somewhere behind him. Ben Carter. My manager. She is not here. Then the line went silent, and I understood that Victor's plan had never depended on keeping Samuel. It depended on making Dominic believe he could still control everyone around him. Dominic ended the call, but the silence inside St. Gabriel's remained filled with Victor's voice. I looked at Samuel beside me, then at the phone in Dominic's hand. He asked where I was even though he should already know, I said. Dominic's eyes narrowed. He was testing whether Ben could see you. Then Ben is not working with him, Samuel said. He is being used. Dominic called one of the men guarding the private room. No answer. A second call went directly to voicemail. The transfer clock on the ledger showed 73 minutes remaining. Dominic closed the file. Victor arranged the restaurant before we ever arrived. Just like he arranged the last 20 years, Samuel replied. Dominic looked toward his father, anger rising again. Do not turn every mistake into a lesson now. Samuel accepted the words without defending himself. Then let Grace speak. She has seen more clearly tonight than either of us. I wanted to tell them I was only a waitress. I knew table numbers, food allergies, and which guests tipped poorly after demanding perfection. Then I remembered Victor's face when the old ring appeared. I remembered Ben insisting that Samuel leave before the Russo party arrived. I remembered the restaurant sound system, the cameras above the private hall, and the staff tablet that controlled every room. Victor does not need Ben as an ally, I said. He only needs Ben's access code. Dominic turned toward me. Access to what? The private dining room, security cameras, reservation files, and the sound system. Ben uses the same manager account for all of them. Samuel understood first. Victor can make Dominic's signature appear on the transfer. Not without biometric confirmation, Dominic said. Unless the private room tablet still has your saved authorization from previous meetings. His expression changed. Harrington's hosted the Russo group every month. Ben always placed a tablet beside Dominic's seat for menus, payments, and private document review. Victor does not need you to sign tonight, I said. He needs everyone to believe you did. Dominic called his attorney and ordered an immediate freeze on every digital authorization connected to Harrington's. The attorney answered that the system could be suspended, but only after a formal fraud notice reached the bank. That would take at least 30 minutes. Victor needed less. I looked at the church ledger again. Ethan had not hidden only proof. He had hidden dates, account numbers, and the original ownership records. We should not bring these back, Samuel said. Victor expects us to. Then we give him what he expects to see. I answered. Dominic studied me. Explain. We return to the restaurant with copied documents. You act as though you are willing to sign. Samuel stays out of sight. I go back to work. Dominic's expression hardened. No, Victor asked where I was because he needs to know whether I can recognize what he changed inside the restaurant. That means I am useful. It also means he considers you a problem. Then let him underestimate the problem. Samuel almost smiled. Dominic did not. You are not walking into that room alone. I will not be alone. The entire restaurant has cameras, microphones, and guests who already have their phones out. Victor chose a public place because he believes reputation will protect him. We used the same room to expose him. Dominic looked at the blank signature line, then at the old memorial bearing his father's name. What do you need? He asked. A copy of Ethan's recording sent to someone outside your organization. I thought of Rachel Morgan, a federal prosecutor who ate lunch at Harrington's every Thursday and once left her card after I helped her recover a misplaced briefcase. I know who. I sent the files before fear could change my mind. Then I called Ben. He answered in a whisper. Grace, do not come back. Is Victor in the private room? A pause. Yes. Is the sound system active? Another pause. It can be. I looked at Dominic. Then turn it on when I say the word father. Ben breathed out slowly. What are you planning? I watched Samuel remove his false memorial plaque from the church wall and place it beside Ethan's ledger. I am giving the cruelest room in Chicago one more chance to listen. When I returned to Harrington's, the dining room looked almost unchanged. Crystal glasses still caught the chandelier light. Rain still traced the windows. Guests still whispered over expensive meals. But the air had shifted. Fear moved through it now, quiet and alert. Ben stood near the service station with his face pale and his hands clenched around a tablet. He gave me one small nod. The sound system was ready. Victor waited inside the private dining room with the copied transfer documents spread across the table. Dominic entered beside me carrying the folder, while Samuel remained in the service corridor where Victor could not see him. You brought her back, Victor said. She chose to return, Dominic answered. Victor looked at me as though choice was a language he had never learned. Miss Miller, This does not concern you. You made it concern me when you used my workplace to trap people. His smile was thin. You are a waitress. That means I know who lies about allergies, who hides receipts, and who looks toward the door before saying something they do not want remembered. Dominic placed the folder on the table. You wanted my signature. Victor relaxed slightly. I wanted you to protect what remains of your family. By transferring it to you. By keeping it away from a man who abandoned you. His words were meant to reopen the wound between Dominic and Samuel. I watched Dominic's hands. They remained still. My father left because you threatened his sons, he said. Victor leaned back. That is the story Samuel told you. Ethan told me too. For the first time, Victor's confidence slipped. Ethan was confused. He named you. A recording can be edited. I stepped closer to the table. Then explain why you needed Dominic to sign before midnight. Victor looked at me. Business timelines are not crimes. No, but false. Authorization, shell accounts, and using Harrington's private tablet to copy biometric approval might be. Ben's face appeared briefly through the glass panel in the door. Victor noticed the movement and stood. You should be careful, Grace. His use of my first name felt deliberate. You have no idea what kind of men you are standing between. I know exactly what kind. I looked toward Dominic. One was raised by a lie. One survived by hiding. And one built power by making both of them afraid to speak. Victor's expression hardened. Samuel was weak. He could have fought. He was protecting his children. He abandoned them. And you made certain Dominic believed that. Victor stepped closer, his voice dropping. Dominic needed a father who could teach him strength. The word had barely left his mouth when Ben activated the sound system. Every speaker in Harrington's carried Victor's voice into the dining room. Father. The signal. Guests stopped talking. Victor turned toward the ceiling, then toward the glass walls surrounding the private room. His reflection looked trapped from every angle. Dominic did not move. Keep talking, I said. Victor stared at me. You think a room full of diners will understand any of this? They understood enough to laugh at Samuel. They can understand enough to hear why he was here. Dominic opened the folder and removed the blank transfer page. Tell them why you needed my signature. Victor looked through the glass toward the dining room, where phones had begun to rise. Madeline Cross was filming again, but this time her camera pointed at him. You would destroy your own name for a homeless old man? Victor asked. Dominic's voice stayed calm. He is my father. Victor laughed once. He was never fit to lead. Ethan knew it. That is why he came to me. From the service corridor, Samuel stepped into view. Ethan came to you because he was gathering proof. Victor's face emptied. Samuel entered the room carrying the false memorial plaque and placed it beside the documents. You buried my name, he said. Then you buried the truth beneath it. Victor looked from Samuel to Dominic, realizing too late that the room was no longer private. I did what was necessary, he said. I built the organization Dominic inherited. I removed every weakness in his path. Dominic's eyes turned cold. Including my brother? Victor did not answer. He did not need to. The silence traveled through every speaker. Then the restaurant doors opened, and Rachel Morgan entered with 2 federal agents behind her. She held the files I had sent less than 30 minutes earlier. Victor looked at me as though he finally understood the mistake he had made. He had seen a waitress. He had never considered the witness. The federal agents did not rush toward Victor. They did not need to. Rachel Morgan entered the private room with the patience of someone who knew the evidence had already closed every door. She placed the copied files beside the unsigned transfer agreement and identified herself for the record. One agent secured the tablet. The other asked Victor to remain where he was while they verified the account numbers and audio recording. Victor looked at Dominic as though power might still save him. You are going to let strangers dismantle everything we built. Dominic stood across the table, calm enough to make Victor's desperation look louder. You built it on my father's exile, my brother's silence, and my name. I made you strong. Victor's voice carried through the restaurant speakers. You taught me to rule through fear, Dominic said. Then he looked at Samuel. He taught me what fear costs. Samuel lowered his eyes, not from shame this time, but from the weight of hearing his son choose truth in front of the entire room. Victor reached for the transfer pages, but Rachel placed her hand over them first. These documents are now part of a federal investigation. You have no authority over Russo business. The accounts cross state lines, involve fraudulent authorization, and connect to multiple shell companies, she replied. That gives us more than enough authority to begin. Victor turned toward Dominic again. You think this ends with me? Half your organization will turn against you. Dominic glanced through the glass walls at the guests, managers, servers, and phones recording every word. Then they can decide whether loyalty means protecting a lie. Victor's expression hardened. Samuel abandoned you. Do not forget that because he walked in wearing a sad story. Dominic looked at his father. The anger between them had not disappeared. Neither had the years. I have not forgotten anything, he said. That is why this is not forgiveness. Not yet. Samuel nodded slowly. I did not come to ask for it. Then why did you come? Samuel looked toward table 12, where the soup bowl still sat beneath the chandelier light. To stop Victor. To give Ethan's truth back to you. And to see whether there was anything left of my son beneath the man I feared you would become. The room went silent again. Dominic absorbed the words without hiding behind authority. You should have come sooner. I should have. You should have trusted me. I should have. You let me hate you. Samuel's voice weakened, but he did not look away. I know. Dominic turned toward the window. For a moment, he was not the most feared man in Chicago. He was a son standing between the father who disappeared and the mentor who replaced him with a lie. I stepped closer, careful not to enter the space between them. You do not have to repair 20 years tonight, I said. You only have to stop adding another lie to them. Dominic looked at me, then at the blank signature line. He picked up the transfer agreement, tore the authorization page once, and handed the remaining documents to Rachel. No private settlement, he said. No sealed arrangement. Every legitimate record goes to the investigators. Victor laughed bitterly. You will destroy your own reputation. Dominic's expression did not change. A reputation built on silence deserves to be examined. Rachel informed Victor that he was being taken into custody for questioning related to fraud, coercion, and financial conspiracy. The agents escorted him through the dining room without spectacle. Guests who had mocked Samuel earlier lowered their eyes as he passed. Madeline Cross stopped recording. Charles Harrington approached Samuel with an apology prepared on his face, but Samuel raised one hand. Apologize to the people you remove when powerful guests are expected, he said. Charles had no answer. Dominic returned to table 12 and pulled out the chair opposite his father. Sit with me. Samuel looked at the cold soup. I cannot give you back the years. No, Dominic said. But you can stop leaving. Samuel sat. Dominic turned to me. Grace, would you bring 2 bowls of the same soup? I looked at the table where the room had first decided one man did not belong. Only if both of you pay, I said. Samuel smiled faintly. Dominic almost did. Fair, he answered. And while the agents carried away the lie that had ruled their family, father and son waited for the simplest thing neither power nor fear had ever given them, a meal together. 8 months later, Table 12 stood in a different building beneath a hand-painted sign that read Father's Table. The dining room was smaller than Harrington's, with warm brick walls, simple wooden chairs, and windows that caught the morning light instead of reflecting chandeliers. No one needed a reservation. No one was asked to prove they belonged. We served breakfast, hot lunches, job placement support, temporary housing referrals, and quiet help for people who had learned to expect judgment before kindness. Samuel worked 3 mornings a week with older veterans and men rebuilding their lives after years on the street. He still wore the silver ring, but the coat was gone. In its place was a clean navy jacket Dominic had bought him, and Samuel had refused twice before accepting. Dominic funded the building through a private trust, but his name appeared nowhere on the walls. That had been Samuel's condition. A meal should not become an advertisement, he had said. Dominic agreed without negotiation. Their relationship had not become simple. Some days they spoke for hours. Other days they sat across from each other with coffee between them, and 20 years still occupying the silence. Forgiveness came slowly, in ordinary pieces. A shared newspaper. A remembered birthday. A phone call answered on the first ring. Victor Hale was awaiting trial on federal fraud and conspiracy charges. The independent review of Russo businesses had removed several executives and returned stolen funds to families who had never known they were victims. Dominic lost influence with men who preferred secrets, but gained something he had never trusted before, a life that did not require everyone around him to be afraid. On opening day, The dining room filled with volunteers, reporters, neighborhood families, and former Harrington's employees. Ben managed the kitchen now. Charles Harrington had sent flowers and a large donation, but Samuel returned both with a note asking him to change his hiring policies instead. Madeline Cross arrived near noon without a camera. She stood beside table 12 for several minutes before approaching Samuel. "I owe you an apology," she said. Samuel looked at her carefully. "You owe many people a different habit." Her face reddened, but she nodded. "I am trying." "Then keep trying." He offered her a seat. That was Samuel. He could restore a person's dignity without pretending they had never taken someone else's away. Dominic entered alone a few minutes later. The room still noticed him, but it no longer stopped breathing. He walked to his father's table and placed 2 bowls of tomato soup between them. "I paid for both," he told me. "I checked," I said. Samuel laughed, a real laugh this time, warm enough to turn several heads. Dominic pulled out the chair beside him, then looked toward me. "Will you sit with us?" The question held no command, no assumption, only space. I untied my apron and crossed the room. "Only if nobody owns the table." Dominic glanced at Samuel. "Do you own it?" Samuel shook his head. "The table belongs to whoever needs a place at it." I sat between them. Around us, plates moved, coffee poured, and strangers became less strange over warm food. Dominic looked at the room his father had inspired and I had helped build. "You served him before you knew who he was," he said. "I served a man who was hungry." Samuel touched the edge of his bowl. That was enough. Outside, Chicago traffic moved beneath a pale winter sky. Inside, no one laughed at worn coats or counted quarters with shame. Everyone at Harrington's had judged Samuel by what he lacked. Dominic had recognized him by blood. I had only treated him like a father before I knew whose father he was.